Hello there everyone and welcome to FiST Chat, the vodcast that features discussions on the topics of film, science and technology. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern. How you doing there, Steve?
Hi everyone, I'm doing fine and lovely to be back for another FiST Chat.
Absolutely. And just to follow up from last week, we did a little test with our little recording here about doing like a live capture. Wasn't quite as smooth as we'd hoped, but we've ironed out the kinks and I think it's going to look great this time. So appropriately, we're going to be talking about some tech today, and we've had a podcast on the iPad 2 and a discussion on, I guess, specifically more on the iPad 2, I guess, about tablet devices. But we're going to talk today a bit more generally about tablets and a few developments that have occurred recently, starting with the unfortunate death of the HP Touchpad. And We'll talk about the touchpad itself, but in a broader context, it's also that HP is killing its operating system, WebOS, the mobile operating system, and is going to sell off its PC business. But if we start with the touchpad, I don't know, were you in the queue there lining up for the fire sale when they were going for like $90 or something when they were throwing them out?
I didn't know anything about it. And I don't know for our overseas viewers, the touchpad had only been released for 4 days in Australia. So it's one of the shortest retail, I think, lifespans in history. So Harvey Norman, a big retailer here, quit, I don't know how many hundreds of the units, normally recommended around $700.
Yeah. And it was $99, was it?
$99, and they all walked out the door within a few hours. So maybe, tablets at the right price are reasonable.
Well,
I would have bought one if I'd known.
Absolutely. But as a side issue, what about, running it and maintaining it? It's not going to be supported. It's not going to be, updated in any way. Are you still going to be able to, no developers are going to develop for it now that the whole WebOS platform is not, it's dead?
Now, this might come back to the heart of this whole matter. It doesn't matter with a tablet. iPad 1, is iPad 1 supported?
I think it is at the moment. Probably when they get iPad 3 out and they start releasing software for it that can't run on the first one.
In which case, I think your HP wouldn't be any worse off for $100. You haven't spent $800 on it. So I would have thought, I'm not sure. Certainly with tablets, we've not seen enough generations yet to be certain. But I think they're going to build in obsolescence in a lot more quickly into tablets. And let's face it, we've already spoken about this, Ben. Tablets today, no matter what brand or make they are, certainly aren't a patch on what they'll be in another 2 generations' time. So, my feeling is that if you've got one of the first tablets out there, really it's a bit of flash, but it's not much go.
Yeah, exactly. But now just talking on the broader, topic of HP before we move on to other tablet discussions, they killed their mobile operating system, which apparently was supposed to be the only real possible competitor to iOS from Apple.
Yeah.
And this talk about selling off their PC business. What's going on there?
Well, obviously they don't feel they're making enough money out of PCs, and that could be strategic in terms of the fact that I think even Apple now have come out and said that PCs are just going to be a product, not the product in the range. So that might be the way they feel about it, but I don't know what it means they're keeping in terms of hardware, and yet at the same time we're seeing Google move towards hardware base. And I find that interesting because we've gone through this before once again in terms of this discussion where we've spoken about, if there's a big shake-up, who's going to survive? And it's going to be people who are providing the systems or the apps to run on their own hardware. So I don't know where this leaves HP.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to an opinion piece I found on Engadget.com. It was entitled, "Tablets Aren't the Third Device I'd Hoped For." from a productivity standpoint anyway. And we've discussed this already in relation to iPad 2, but it probably is more a case of it being about the form factor itself. I mean, just a couple of things that they've mentioned in here. Anything that is on you could do on an iPad or any sort of tablet can be done on a phone, a smartphone. So,
and better.
And better. And one thing that they did point out is that resolution-wise, you can see the exact amount of information on your iPhone screen that you can on an iPad screen. And we've mentioned this before, you can put your iPhone in your pocket. You can't put your iPad in your pocket, and if you're carrying it around in a bag, you might as well be carrying a laptop.
Oh, look, Ben, I think we'll be going on and on and on about this. This is perhaps one of those things in technology where they just can't match up all the competing, I think, desires that people have. On the one hand, now we've got massive screens because viewing content can only be viewed on massive screens.
Yeah.
And yet we're trying to shrink things, so we've got mobile phones or smartphones which show video.
Yeah.
Where's the iPad sit? Somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, but I guess this is the problem, and this is something that this opinion piece and Engadget sort of brings up, is that it's from a productivity standpoint, it's a very awkward device to use. Trying to type on it, for example. They do make the point, yeah, exactly. You're going to have to rest it on a table or rest it on your knee or something. You can't hold it and sort of type quickly and, that sort of stuff. Yeah, exactly. So, but, I mean, they do make a point, it'd be nice if, you're in high school or something and, they're handing them out as, sort of tools to use in the classroom, or, there was another example, you've got, like a wedding photography business and, it's kind of cool. You pick up an iPad, you flick through some temp photos for your customers to peruse. So in that sense, it's kind of interesting.
Ben,
but
you can do that on your MacBook Air.
Yeah, and that's the point. I mean, the MacBook Air is only, the 11-inch one anyway, is only a tiny bit larger than the iPad. And you can get so much more done on that device. So it's just a fascinating thing, and to me it kind of raises the question, which I didn't really think of the last time we spoke about this, is whether or not this is just a big marketing push to brainwash us into buying another gadget that we maybe in this case don't necessarily need.
Wow. You know my views on that. Of course it is. And where is the real advance? Okay, communication's better. Maybe the graphics are better. The fact that we can stream video like this at each other and talk face to face is better. But there's no advance in technology. There's no advance in functionality, and it's not doing anything that you can't do better on any other device. So it's not. It's not that third device that we've all been waiting for.
Yeah, exactly. At least not yet. But it's still. But one other point I just wanted to mention was that if, say, they wanted to do away with the keyboard, which is essentially what the tablet is doing, then to get that input, you'd need some sort of speech recognition sort of thing happening. And I heard on another podcast someone actually say, well, what are you going to have people in an office staring at a tablet and speaking to it? You're going to have like 20 people or 30 people in the office all doing the same thing, like getting this chorus of speech recognition commands coming through.
Are we talking the end of the open plan office?
Yeah, everyone will have to be in their own isolated cubicle, and then we'll be in the Matrix. Then
this is FiST Chat, film, information, science, and technology.
Absolutely, and we have to bring in a film reference here because this comes up with another story in relation to Samsung and Apple sort of countersuing each other over the design of the iPad. But hold your horses, because it would seem that Stanley Kubrick first invented the iPad when he put a tablet-like device in 2001, which was a nice little spin on the whole thing, really.
Well, if only Stanley were here to speak for himself, I wonder what he'd say. I'm sure he'd claim it.
Oh, absolutely, I would. I mean, yeah, and just looking at this article, I don't know how much you can believe of this or not, but some lawyers here said that Samsung might have a viable defense for this because the idea is that he's saying, for example, if he were to copy a Star Trek communicator as a novelty mobile phone, he wouldn't have the right to claim a monopoly on that design because he did not devise it himself. Yeah, okay, whatever. Unless there's just some sort of spin on that, you know.
Wasn't there some sort of similar argument against Google's Android system? You know.
Yeah, I know.
I think when there's big bucks at stake, people will try anything. Good luck to them.
Yeah, I think this is just a case of, you know, them countersuing each other and just, you know, sort of staking out their own turf. You know, they want to own the whole thing. And this is just maybe something I think we may have even touched upon in an earlier episode, that maybe there is no owning the whole market. You know, I mean, what's with, I mean, you know, Apple wanting, you know, to make sure it's not just the tablet, you know, they're going after Samsung for copying the iPhone. There's been reports of them, you know, doctoring the images so that they look the same. I mean, you know.
I mean, I would just ask, I mean, what do you expect a tablet to look like? The operating system aside, what do you expect a phone to look like? They've always been sort of square. Yeah. But graphics tablets have existed now for, you know, more than a decade.
Yeah.
Has Apple copied them?
Yeah, it's a good question, but I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting space to kind of watch at the moment, because who knows if it'll be resolved or whatever else. And I guess if we just summarize it now, it kind of brings into question where the tablet will go, and maybe Apple might have gone too far in claiming it to be a post-PC device. Maybe what they should have maybe said is that it's a complementary device, because at the moment it's a bit hard to see it being nothing other than a consumption device.
Exactly.
And it does have some limited productivity use in some very specific areas, but it's just not a replacement for a laptop.
No, and not yet. And I actually seem to remember that when the iPad was first announced, Apple actually termed it a stepping stone device. So they've definitely ramped up their expectations for it. And no doubt in 10 years' time, it'll probably be quite useful. Until then, I can quite happily just use an iPod Touch.
Exactly right. And it fits nicely into your pocket whenever you go traveling. Okay. It
certainly does.
All right, Steve. So thanks again for the chat. Always interesting. And I'm sure we'll be talking about tablets whenever they resurface again in the headlines. So,
yeah. Well, tweet us if you've got any thoughts on tablets. And if you think we're wrong and you think tablets are really useful, please let us know. I'd love to meet someone who can actually say that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Steve alluded to there, our website, www.fistchat.com. Get all our social media links there, interact with us. We'll be back again next week. So until then, have a good week.